Good evening, everybody, and it's another episode of Big Apple Banter. We got our co-hosts, Chris and Frankie. How you doing this week, Frank?
What's going on, Chris? I'm doing pretty well. Can't complain.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's only stands for one of us because Deshaun Watson has a lot to complain. Apparently.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good for the Jets right now. They're in the driver's seat right now. Um, they could be one of the possible favorites to land Deshaun Watson. And actually, for the Jets specifically, Watson, he has a no trade clause. So right now he has all the cards in his hands. So he really gets to pick where he wants to go. And it's kind of like handicapping or not handicapping, handcuffing Houston
hmm
a little bit and their potential trade destinations. So hopefully, I saw Richard Sherman made a shout out and said like, go to the Jets, like it's a hot spot to go. Um, so it could make a whole lot of sense for the Jets and maybe even Watson to consider a move to the East Coast.
Yeah, Richard Sherman. I did hear that earlier. I mean, he could be saying that to help out his boy, his DC Robert Saleh, who's now the new head coach of the New York Jets. But
Yeah, great hire.
yeah, I from everything I'm hearing, he's really like he seems really like a disciplinary coach, and he's more of a players coach too. He has develops relationship with his players, um, and he's more like that rah rah type of guy, kind of like a Rex Ryan, but more of like a disciplined Rex Ryan.
Yeah,
Kind of
that's what I've been hearing a lot. This guy talks to his players. He communicates well with his players. He gets along with his players. He makes sure the locker room and he has like a nice foundation. That's what I've been hearing a lot out of this San Francisco side.
right. And now Deshaun Watson, I heard that he mentioned that he wanted the Houston Texans to interview Eric Bieniemy and also Robert Saleh, who they were the only team out of the seven head coaching vacancies to not request an interview with Robert Saleh. So, I mean, that team doesn't even have a GM right now or a coach. So they're still
Houston?
interviewing. Yeah, do they have a GM?
Yeah, they hired Nick Casario
Oh
from
yeah, my
New
mistake.
England.
My
No,
mistake.
it's all
So
good.
they
Yeah, they
still
just
don't
don't
have a
have a head
coach
coach
though.
yet. Yeah.
So I mean, they still got to hire a coach, and it's going to be difficult doing that when you don't really know if Deshaun Watson is going to be on your team. So
Yeah, that's for Houston. If I'm Houston fans, this all just obviously goes back to Bill O'Brien, and
yeah,
he did a poor job managing that whole franchise. When you have the powers that he did, and I don't get it. When you trade a player like DeAndre Hopkins and you don't really get anything in return, like he just really put the franchise in a hole from there. And even with that, Deshaun Watson still had a pretty good season, throwing for almost 5,000 yards. Despite their 4-11 record, but you still when you lose a guy like that, I don't blame Deshaun Watson because the franchise isn't helping them. They're just crippling him. And obviously, they took a step backward. They were in the playoffs last year, and now they went 4-11. So the team was not well cultured under Bill O'Brien, and obviously a lot of players expressed their frustrations, and you even saw a little bit of a turnaround once the interim head coach came in. So it's going to be a hard relationship to repair. And it's going to be a tough decision for the owner of Houston to make because that's your franchise quarterback who they just recently signed to a 6-year contract. So, if I'm Houston, and especially if I'm fans, there's no way I want to let him go. But the way Deshaun Watson obviously has been playing this, he hasn't answered any of their phone calls or anything. So there's no way he seems to be returning to Houston. This is not going to be an easy relationship to repair. So it might just be better for both sides to separate, and we'll see. We'll see what happens.
yeah, and we still are unclear on what exactly is the reason why he's so unhappy. Whether it's all the moves by Deshaun Watts or DeAndre Hopkins or Bill O'Brien giving away draft picks, or if it's some problem he has with ownership, which seems to be more of the
Right.
leading
Yeah, it's
leading
probably a
decision there.
combination of both because
Yeah,
when you have the coach, just putting the franchise in shambles and then the upper management not listening to it's your franchise quarterback. At least take some things into consideration, and they don't even acknowledge any of his suggestions. You just feel, if you're just on watching, you would just feel like, what the hell, man? Like, come on, like I'm your quarterback. Like, do something for me. And they haven't. It's just been the opposite. So yeah, and even the players on Houston have you know have their support for Deshaun, and why, and they know that. Other players have come out. So if I'm the Jets, you want to pounce on this, but also at the right price. You know, so you don't want to give away all your draft capital, but if they could turn a couple of the picks from the Seattle trade, with Jamal Adams, it could work out really well in their favor, because essentially it would be like turning that Jamal Adams trade into like a 3-team trade, or flipping Jamal for Deshaun Watson. So in that case, that's a really big win for the Jets, even if they have to give up a little extra. But you don't want to give up too much where they don't have enough to improve the team with draft capital either.
I agree with you, but see, now you say the fact that Deshaun Watson has a no trade clause might handicap the trade scenarios, but I look at it from this standpoint. The fact that he does have that no trade clause limits the teams that he could possibly go to. So you've heard the Jets just because of the amount of capital they've had, and you've heard a lot about the Dolphins. Now, if he's willing to only go to, say, those two teams, that actually gives the Jets more leverage, because if he's not going to come back to the Texans, they're only dealing with one other, trading partner that could happen. So the Jets could actually give up a little bit less than, if he had a no trade clause, and he could be traded to any of the 31 other teams in the NFL.
Yeah, no, you're right on that. I do agree with that. And what could work into the Jets' favor there also is, if they are competing with Miami, luckily they do have. It's funny because if Houston didn't make that trade with Miami, they wouldn't
Yeah.
have to worry about the situation. But hey, here they are now. So either they could trade back for their pick, or they flip to Deshaun Watson and they get the number 2 overall pick. And that, like I said, that's going to work into the Jets' favor if they are competing with Miami. But if maybe, I don't know, maybe Jacksonville comes out of nowhere and maybe they want to just
Yeah.
get a quarterback and flip that number
It
1
could be the
overall
dark
pick.
horse.
Um,
Yeah.
but so on the other hand, though, with that, if Jacksonville does want to go that route, the opposite route obviously is just drafting Trevor Lawrence, and they might just want to do that because the contract. They don't have that $40 million salary on hand compared to, a rookie contract. So there's always that scenario that could come into play, and obviously it's going to come down to Urban Meyer and his decision and the Jacksonville's ownership. But in the end, the Jets definitely have enough draft capital. Throw in the 2nd overall pick, uh, next year's Seattle's 1st round, and maybe a 2nd or a 3rd, and maybe even Sam Darnold, and that should get it done. I heard on was it maybe DCR, or I don't know, on one of these shows, maybe Michael K show, where Mike Tannenbaum was on, and he said that he would get, it was Bart and Hahn, excuse me, it wasn't either one. I was listening to Bart and Hahn, and they played it back from Mike T on like DCR, and
Mm-hmm.
Tannenbaum said that he would give up 2 first, I believe a 3rd or a 4th, and Quinnen Williams. And when I heard that, I was like, no way. No, absolutely not. And that's why you're not a GM anymore. It's plain and simple. Sorry, Tannenbaum. But that's just something you don't do. You don't give away. They've already traded Leonard Williams, and he already showed progression. And that's another draft pick they want to trade away. Like, what are we doing here? So you trade away Quentin Williams, and then Sam Darnold's already a question mark. So what are we doing? It's just more draft picks that the Jets just keep on trading. That's just not a smart move. If not a smart.
Yeah. Plus, if you give up all that draft capital and one of your young, promising pieces, what's so different between the Houston Texans and the Jets right now? Then nothing. Not very much. So Watson would be entering the same situation.
Exactly, and that's one thing. That's when I first heard of these rumors, I was kind of like, hey, Deshaun Watson was just 4-11 in Houston. If he comes here, what's to say he's not going to go 4-11 again? And but either way, if we do have Deshaun Watson, he's definitely a way bigger, different, a way bigger upgrade over Sam Darnold. And if we could put other pieces around him, so if you do trade the second overall pick, hopefully you still have that 23rd overall pick. Maybe you could draft a wide receiver there because they're still going to need somebody for Deshaun Watson to throw the ball to, or at least have not like mediocre guys, or they don't draft a wide receiver and then they go out and sign one in free agency because there are plenty of guys out there like Galladay, Juju Smith-Schuster. So there's still plenty talent out there in free agency. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see the path that Joe Douglas will go. But I hope he pulls the trigger to make a Deshaun Watson trade because the Jets haven't had a quarterback in like what 50 years.
At least, and that's saying if Joe Namath was even better than Deshaun Watson. We
So
can't even definitively say that. Um, from my standpoint, I would look at it. Yeah, I would part with the second overall pick, but I would keep that Seattle pick because you need something to draft, whether it's Watson or Darnold this upcoming season. And then I would turn around and trade next year's Jets pick, not the Seattle pick. So I would keep both Seattle pick. No, I'm sorry. Trade the following year Seattle pick, keep the Jets pick. So I'd trade one of each of them. Two is the max. I would
second
go there.
overall, next year's Seattle pick, and probably like another, like a third or a second overall, a third or a second round pick. And maybe if they want Sam Darnold, give him Sam Darnold. If they don't, then you hang on to Sam. Maybe you keep him as a backup. I don't know. Or you still trade Sam to another team and you get that draft pick and you use it in this year's draft, which is probably
Right.
another option too. And then they could draft a quarterback later on in another round if they really wanted to. Or another option is if they don't go after Deshaun Watson in another event, if they don't go after Deshaun Watson and they keep Sam Darnold as their quarterback, they should just look to see what quarterbacks are coming out of next year's draft and just look towards that because I'm not totally so, you and I aren't totally sold on Justin Fields. And as I've been, clamoring about is that I don't want to use a top 10 pick, especially number 2 overall pick, or if we trade that pick down to get more picks and then it becomes a top 10 pick, to use it on a Zach Wilson or even Justin Fields because I heard his stock has been falling and Wilson's stock has been rising. But it will come down to the combine, and obviously a lot of things will fluctuate, from now until then. But I still don't want to use a top 10 pick on a quarterback. Use that for offensive lineman, a skill player, or a defensive player, something that we need to shore up. And I'm sure Robert Saleh is going to have an idea on what he's going to do there. I trust him. He was, I know he had a hell of a defensive line in San Francisco, but he was still one calling plays and executing and putting that structure there. And he brought his offensive line coach too. So I like that. And if Joe Douglas can, pull some magic there, I think the Jets can be in good hands if they get Watson or if they trade that pick down. Hopefully they don't draft a quarterback, use it for a skill player, and go after quarterback next year because I think that's going to be the best route to go.
Yeah. We've stated over and over again, I don't like either of those draft prospects other than Lawrence. Now, maybe Houston does go and trade with Jaguars if they really want Trevor Lawrence. And if I was Jacksonville, I would go and take Lawrence Watson, because there's been a lot of busts that have been drafted number 1 overall. I know everyone's saying he's a clear-cut prospect, the best there's been since possibly John Elway. But, there's an option there with them. But, yeah, I think it's going to ultimately come down to getting the coach in there and deciding if he wants to go all in on a quarterback in his prime right now that's getting paid already, or if they think that there's not really much of a difference between Darnold and Watson and they'll just keep the draft picks, trust Joe Douglas to do his job and draft these players and pieces to go around them and see where they go from there. So, that there's 2 totally different routes they can go. But if you're a Jet fan, you got to be happy that you're actually in a position to pull off something of this magnitude. Because
absolutely.
They haven't had a quarterback in a very, really long time.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, well, if we're both Jet fans here, so right now I want them to pull the trigger for Deshaun Watson as long as it's at the right price. I don't want to overpay, but when it comes down to it, holding that number 2 overall pick is going to be at be advantage in our advantage. So um, I,
I think I think they might almost have to make the trade at this point because if you find out that he was available to go to the Jets and then you decide not to and keep the draft picks and Darnold and then things don't work out, the GM looks like a total fool.
yeah, no, you're right.
So
Yeah, if a player of that magnitude is available and you have the draft capital, and the Jets are one of 3 teams other than Jacksonville and Miami to really pull off a trade like that. And the only other destinations where he could go is possibly like San Francisco. But then they're really going to mortgage their future because they're going to have to give up 3 of their own first round draft picks. And then they're going to have no draft picks, first rounders for the next 3 years. And that's not something you really want to put your franchise into. Look at Washington, when they gave it for RG3, they traded
yeah,
away three picks.
they gave away what 3 1s and 3 2s.
I think so. Was it? I know they definitely gave away 3 1s.
Yeah, that's
RG3 had an amazing rookie season, but then he got hurt, and then he was never the same. And
yeah. The only other team I heard about was possibly the Panthers, as possibly, but I don't know what their cap situation's like and their draft capital's like. There's no way it's even close to the Dolphins.
Either way, no teams have the draft capital like Miami and the
No.
Jets, or even actually, and then even Jacksonville. But Lawrence is probably going to get drafted by Jacksonville, and then that just puts the Jets in the driver's seat to pull the trigger on that trade. And
Yeah,
then
because if you're Watson, do you even want to go to Jacksonville?
Probably not. And then obviously you want to go to Miami because they definitely have a good foundation there under Brian Flores. So, if I'm Watson, I definitely, why would I not want to go to Miami? And then another hot destination is New York. Why would I not want to go to New York either? And I heard Deshaun Watson's brother's a Jet fan too. So
I did see that picture. The truck he bought him. He's
who knows?
this
might have just fell right into the Knicks' lap. And with the bright mind of Joe Douglas, he's gonna get the move done. Like I know he will. If he's gonna make the smart move, it's just like the smart moves that Sandy Alderson has been making for the Mets.
Plus, one side note on that, Jacksonville's in the same division as the Texans, so that makes it even less likely that they're going to trade him there.
Yeah, I did not think about that.
Yeah, that reminded me. That's going to be even tougher to trade your franchise quarterback to your team in your own division. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Thinking about that, that didn't come to my mind. So that's probably.
So really, it's 2 teams.
Yeah, Jets and Miami, and then maybe dark horse in San Francisco. But when it comes down to suitors, the Jets and Miami because they hold the number 2, number 3 picks. And then let's just say they do trade Deshaun to the Jets. They could always trade that number 2 pick even down and acquire more other assets. If another team likes Fields and they don't like Fields, who knows? Because just think if they need to trade Deshaun Watson, and it's regardless, like it's inevitable. He wants out. They have no other choice. He doesn't want to play for them. That's it. So their best bet is to trade him to the Jets because they hold the next highest pick, which is number 2. And then whether they want to take Fields or not, then they'll be in the same position as the Jets are now, where they could trade that pick and get other draft capital. So, it could be beneficial to Houston to trade him to the Jets over Miami. So, the next team who wants to jump up to number 2 can, if that is, happens to happen on draft night or draft day.
Many options to explore, and there's still a lot to unfold. So I guess we just got to wait and see at this point.
Yeah, man, it's something to be waiting to see, and a lot will happen from now to the combine, to draft interviews, until the draft day itself. Because there's always a photo or a tweet that could come out and just kills the draft stock of a player.
Yeah, cue Laramie Tunsil.
All right, so let's towel off for a quick second, and we'll come back.
Sounds good.
All right, welcome back to Big Apple Banter. Well, we're gonna get into a little baseball now. So with the Mets, they made a little trade, little 3-team trade involved with the Padres and Pirates. So the Pirates sent Joe Musgrove over to San Diego as they keep adding to their starting pitching, which looks very, very, very formidable. So San Diego sent a couple prospects to Pittsburgh, and the Mets sent a prospect over to San Diego for left-handed starting pitcher Joey Lucchesi, who I've liked over the years from playing fantasy baseball. He's put up decent numbers. His career ERA is like a little over 4. It's nothing to it's not eye popping or anything, but those ERAs goes to show that he has gems, and then he has games where he gets hit hard. So it's just all about finding that consistency, and maybe a change of scenery in New York can do him some good. And he's a quality left-handed starter. So I do like that. Um, I'm sure you saw the news yesterday. The Blue Jays landed George Springer. Um, I
That
was
was
a
this
little
morning, wasn't it?
disappointed.
Yeah.
It was yesterday going into today.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Um, but I was a little disappointed as a Mets fan. I was kind of hoping we'd make a push for him. But even though I know if we did sign Springer, it would have made it really tough to sign extensions for Lindor, Conforto, Syndergaard, possibly even Stroman. So it could be a blessing in disguise for the Mets. But I'm sure the Mets are going to pivot somewhere else now. They probably look to Jackie Bradley Jr. to play center field. But again, I'm not totally disappointed. I mean, having Springer would have made our lineup probably one of the better lineups in baseball, with him at leadoff, Lindor batting in the 3-hole, Alonso, Conforto, Dom Smith. Like this, they have quality players up and down. Jeff McNeil. So, I think they could have had one of the better lineups in MLB if they would have signed Springer. However, being 31 years old, getting a 6-year deal at 150 million. I know Mets fans might be like, "Oh, how come Steve Cohen didn't outbid him?" But you know what? We got to be realistic here. We can't go outbid and pay millions and millions for every player here, and you want to pay the right player. George Springer, he's 31 years old. For an outfielder who plays center field, it's a pretty important position, especially defensively. So as he gets upper in age, his defensive metrics will go down. So eventually he might have to move over to a corner outfield position. So that's definitely something they want, they probably thought about. But you know what? Now it gives the Yankees some competition. It gives the Blue Jays a little bit deeper of a lineup, which they already have a pretty nice young lineup. Um, so maybe they could be a thorn in the Yankees' season, but probably not. I don't think so, especially now that they got their guy. How about
Yeah.
that? Everybody was worried, but
No worrying here.
yeah, I'm
We
sure
knew
you
it'd get
weren't worried.
tough.
When you listen to the sports radio, all the Yankee fans are, have ants in their
Sky's falling with
pants.
them all the time. Yeah. They're always worried about nonsense. But DJ LeMahieu's returning to the Bombers for 6 years at $90 million. So they get him at an annual average value of $15 million a year, which considering that he was making 12 before that, so he got a $3 million raise. Not that bad. I know he gets a extra couple of years than they wanted on that contract, but this allows them more financial flexibility because later in the day they went ahead and also picked up Corey Kluber on a 1-year deal. That's intriguing to me. I know he's a few years removed now from his Cy Young status, and he had a lot of injuries, but just the potential there as a
The
number
upside.
2 starter. I think you got to like it as a Yankee fan. I mean, yeah, essentially now that means that Tanaka's probably gone and that's his replacement. But, Tanaka was a ticking time bomb too because he still has that tear in his shoulder that he's been avoiding Tommy John surgery for like 3+ years now. So at any time that could rip. Or elbow?
Elbow.
Whatever. Okay. Regardless, it was close to at any point being an issue. And, that can really hurt their chances down the stretch. So I like they got both the deals done. DJ, is vital to this team. Is vital to the offense. Is the only one that puts the ball in play on a consistent basis. He's pretty much become like I know outside of Judge, he's essentially been the de
The
facto
heart and soul
captain
of
of
the team. He's been the heart and soul of the team.
yeah, and he's only been there 2 seasons. So he really has taken over that team as the last couple of years. So I'm glad they got him back at a decent financial deal and
Yeah, man, it's a
let's
deal they
go.
had to get done, and you know what? They did it with, as you said, with financial flexibility. And instead of giving him the 4 to 5 years, 100+ million, they laid it over 6 years. They gave him, as you said, a $3 million raise instead of, his initial asking was what, like 20 to 25 million per season. He didn't get that. And, it was also a slower market. So, but hey, props to them. They got their guy. And even in the end of the day, when, he's a little bit older and he's up in age, that's not a bad contract to have on your bench. And for a guy like LeMahieu, who is a contact first guy, even props, kudos to them. He's going to improve their chances to getting to the World Series and hopefully getting the Yankees to a 28 championship title.
Yeah, hopefully
Without
that's
him, it
what
would
he's
have
going
been
for.
even harder.
Yeah, there was no scenario where I didn't think he was going to be returning, and if he didn't, yeah, there was no way they were going to compete at the level they want to. Um, Now, after they fill these holes, you look at the rest of the roster. Maybe there's a potential to sign one more pitcher, but other than that, they seem like they're really pretty set for the season.
Yeah, and with that Kluber signing, it's definitely like a medium risk high reward because they did like a little overpaying 10 million. But actually, there were some reports that he turned down multi-year or even higher value deals to sign with the Yankees. So that also goes to show something that he also wanted to win now. And I don't blame him for choosing the Yankees. I was kind of pondering to see if the Mets were in on Kluber. I know they were they did scout him a little bit. So I guess they were never really high on him unless Kluber was just more interested in signing with the Yankees than with the Mets. And if that was the case, hey, it is what it is. And I hope he pitches out because it's tough to see pitchers with the talent that he had lose it because of injury. It's tough to see pitchers lose their talent because of injury over the years. We've seen it with Matt Harvey. It's tough. You don't want to see that with pitchers. So hopefully he has a bounce back year and he could help propel the Yankees to a 20th championship title. And with the American League, you know I don't really see much competition around there. I obviously the Toronto just made a signing with George Springer, so but that's not the Yankees are going to win the division. They're not going to compete there. I don't really see Toronto having the starting pitching either. The Yankees, obviously they have Garrett Cole, so that's that's lovely. Um, but outside of that, you have the White Sox in the Central, maybe the Twins. But either way, when it comes down to the playoffs, they'll have a ticket in, but that's all they're gonna have. They'll be like, and the Yankees are gonna be like, "Thank you for showing up." That's what it's gonna come down to, and the Yankees are just gonna right now. The playoffs don't matter to them. As a Yankee fan, you can't be satisfied with the playoffs. You have to be satisfied with getting to the World Series and winning, because that's what it's meant. That's what being a Yankees fan means.
Yeah, plain and simple. I mean, this team has made the playoffs. I mean, at least in the course of my lifetime, I think they've only missed it 3 seasons. So that's that's pretty crazy in itself. But yeah, I mean, you look at the AL East. Yeah, Toronto added Springer, and they have some young players like Guerrero and um,
They have
Biggio.
Bo Bichette. They have Kevin Biggio.
So yeah, they
Um,
have some young players, but they're not at the level of a win now team. And like you said, yeah, they don't have the starting pitching either. I mean, they traded away Stroman a couple seasons ago, and that was their best starting pitcher. And then yeah, around the rest of the American League, Houston is taking a step back too. I mean, they just lost
yeah, big step
Springer.
back. Verlander's coming back from. I think he even got Tommy John, right? I think he got Tommy John, or he got some kind of surgery on his arm.
Yeah, I think he's not going to be back till probably August. I think I heard.
Yeah, so he's not going to be back. Zach Greinke's like 37, 38 years old. He's
Yeah,
not what he was when he won his Cy Young. I
and
know they have
then
some other younger pitchers, and obviously they lost Springer. So I know they have some other outfielder. They have Jordan Alvarez, they have Kyle Tucker, some other prospects. But are they going to be able to fill in the shoes that those players were? And also when it comes down to the playoffs, are they going to be able to? They're going to have they're not going to have that experience or even the pitching depth to probably get them to that game.
No, probably not. And I mean, you look at the other team in that division, the Angels. They have the offensive firepower, but do they have the pitching?
Never
No.
do.
No, they never do. I mean, that's why Mike
Even
Trout is
bullpen.
supposedly the best player in baseball. He's never been in the postseason.
It's sad. It's sad. It really is.
That just shows the difference between all these sports. He's the greatest player in baseball, but he can't even get his team in the playoffs. But if you have the greatest basketball player, you're easily going to be in the postseason. So
Yeah.
baseball is just an all-around team game.
Yeah, man. That's what it is. And, going into basketball, James Harden made his big debut for the Brooklyn Nets. Versus Orlando, they had a 122 to 115 win, and he triple-doubled in his debut. That, he's one of a few players to do that. He had a 30-point triple-double. KD had 40 points. Both of them balled out. We were all going to wonder, what's the chemistry going to be like? And they didn't skip a beat. They balled out, and these two are going to be a fierceful force to reckon with in the East.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at that in the background. You got KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. I don't know what Kyrie did tonight.
Yeah, the big three just made their debut tonight.
No, I know. I don't know what he did offensively, meaning Kyrie. I didn't see the.
I think it just said he had 37 points.
So, yeah, any night, any of those guys can pick up the slack of the other two. It's just like who wants to take the ball. They're so talented. That trio is probably one if not the best trio in NBA history. So, I mean, you got to see if down the long stretch and as the season progresses and they get closer to the postseason, how they are longevity wise with their health. And if they're, they're still, I know right now it's all new. So they're going to try to make it work.
Yeah, you got to give them some time, and that's what the regular season's for. And you know what? They're going to make the playoffs. It doesn't really matter what their record's going to be. Nobody's going to criticize them about their record. What they're going to be criticized about is getting to the NBA championship and winning. But if they lose to, let's say, LeBron James, then no shame on that. No shame to losing to LeBron James.
Yeah, no. It's going to be something to look for down the stretch to see how their egos mesh because I don't know. Like I said, it's fresh right now, but a few months down the line, I think it could be a potential problem, those three. But, yeah, I mean, LeBron James in the finals, if they end up going against him, I mean, he only has Anthony Davis and some side pieces, so I think that they would still be favored ahead of them or ahead of him and company.
I agree, but I'm just saying if they were to lose it, losing to LeBron is,
yeah, there's no shame in that.
Yeah, exactly.
But he is 36 years old. LeBron James is 36 years old though, and the other two are much younger, and they're probably hovering around 30 or early 30s. I think KD is like 32 or something.
Yeah, KD is obviously a little fragile, with his Achilles injury. Kyrie is Kyrie, and then James Harden, he kind of chokes in the playoffs, So, when it comes down to, they should make it to the finals. I think they will make it to the finals, because coming off their, the big trio debut tonight, Kyrie dropped 37, Durant dropped 38, and Harden dropped 21, and that's probably obviously an off night for Harden. Dropping 21 points. And it's obviously it's not always going to be like that. Everybody's going to be fluctuating with their 30, 40 point, 20 point games. But wow. It's just when you got that kind of firepower, top 15 players in the game on one team, that's probably never happened before.
No. Now, do we know why Kyrie decided to come back tonight?
I don't know of any specific reason. I'm not sure if there was anything with him talking to the media or anything. Have you heard anything?
No, I'm wondering why all of a sudden he's back after taking that absence of almost 2 weeks.
I know. I'm not sure if you heard there was something where Steven Jackson came out and said that Kyrie Irving was buying a house for George Floyd's family, but I'm not sure if that happened like this week or if that happened like in the past, like when that happened. So I don't really know the whole tales and story on that, but either way, Kyrie's got some splaining to do.
Yeah,
So
they got to
it's
hold
going to
him
be interesting what
accountable.
he say.
Yeah,
You know,
they have
yeah,
they have
yeah.
to
These
hold him
players,
accountable
yeah,
because he
these
has been
players can't
working
get, keep
over him.
getting away with this stuff.
No. But it seems like that's the trend. I mean, we just talked about at length that Deshaun Watson wants out from his team. So this trend of people getting their way and getting traded or
Yeah,
taking
but
a
the
seat
Deshaun
back.
Watson situation compared to the Kyrie situation is two polar opposites. You know, the whole Watson thing, he was they mishandled him in Houston, and Kyrie's just like, come on, Kyrie's been bouncing around from team to team. You've already said it. You know, it was a problem in Boston. You know, telling fans that he wants to be there, he wants to be a lifer there, investing all that, and then leaves them after a season. Now goes to Brooklyn, and now he's pulling all this, all these shenanigans. So you don't really know what you're gonna get from Kyrie. And management, the ownership, they don't step on his toes. They take a step back. They're like in his shadow. Like I don't they let KD and Kyrie basically run the franchise.
But what about James Harden? He just literally did the same thing. He got his way out of Houston. He got his way.
Yeah. Now he pulled those shenanigans too.
So
And you and I already talked about that.
yeah, no, no, no,
you and I don't condemn that stuff.
not at all. But yeah, I mean the Knicks, not the Knicks. The Nets had a good showing tonight, and you got to be very excited if you're a Nets fan. That's all you really could take away at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely when they made that trade for Paul Pierce KG, they gave up a lot of their future, but this is, they probably felt a little weary or tentative about making this trade, but when you make a trade like that for a top 5 player in the game, when you already have a top 5 player on your team and then another top 15 player, it's an easy decision to make, especially when they've been after that championship for such a long time now.
No, and they got to do it in the next couple of years.
Yeah, well,
Because
they better.
it has.
They better.
They have to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts at this point. They have no draft capital. They have these players in their prime. They got to get it done. So we'll see how it
Yeah,
goes.
no excuses. And yeah, as you said too, they have more youth on their side compared to playing like a LeBron James Lakers. As much as I wanna see LeBron keep adding to his rings to his fingers,
Me
but
too.
uh, it's gonna be tough with this trio. It's gonna be tough, and I don't. Uh, I think they'll take care of the West pretty easy. Not pretty easy, but just like they did last year, they'll take care of business. They'll get it done. But no team is going to be like Brooklyn.
No, and they'll probably have a tougher route in the West than Brooklyn should have in the East. I mean, this is their conference to win at this point.
Yeah. No, right now, if Brooklyn has an early exit from the playoffs, boy, oh boy.
And right now, I think they're only 2 games better than the other team in town, the Knicks. So I think they're only 2 wins better. So yeah, they're at full strength now. So we're going to see how they're going to do over the course of the next couple months. So that's definitely should change very soon. Now, how have the Knicks been doing since we've last spoke?
So yeah, they were trending down. They were on a little losing streak, but over the last 3 games, they're 7-8 now on the season. They lost on Friday to the Cavs, 106-103. It wasn't a bad showing. Andre Drummond popped off. He had 33 points, 23 boards. Um, Julius Randle continues to be a solid bright spot for the Knicks. He keeps the dude's easily the MVP for the team right now. He's been putting up 20, like 11 and like 5 regularly now. RJ Barrett, he's been having some pretty solid games over the last 3 games, averaging around 20 points. But like I said, he's got some consistency issues that he's got to work on, and that's what the season's all going to be about. And they continue. One of their big wins on Sunday was against the Celtics, and a lot of their wins, they have 7 wins on the season, and a lot of their wins have been against quality teams. They weren't. It's not like they're against
Little
garbage
Sisters of the
teams.
Poor. Yeah.
So they're getting some pretty quality wins. They beat the Bucks. Now they beat they blew out the Celtics and Kemba Walker's season debut. They spoiled that and they won 105-75. Randall dropped 20 points. Barrett had 19 and 11. They both of them shot pretty well. Obi Toppin chipped in for 12 points in 17 minutes. So it was an all around great game for the Knicks. And again, they would not be like this if they did not have Tom Thibodeau as a coach. And I'm sure every Knicks fan would be uh, agreeing with me on that one.
Yeah, because what have they really changed from their roster between this season and last besides their head coach?
No, they made
Nothing
some minor
significant.
adjustments, some minor addings, some minor subtractions,
And
and
drafting Obi Toppin. I
yeah,
mean and he's barely played, correct?
yeah. He just came back from injury a few games ago, so they've been easing him in. Same with Emmanuel quickly, and but yeah, I just you got to love what you're seeing from the Knicks team. They're in the playoffs right now, and they continue to play at this pace, at a 500 pace or just below. They'll make it to the playoffs, and as long as they're showing their competitive team, there's lots to love right now from that standpoint. So you got to love what you're seeing from the Knicks, especially if you're seeing the progression from the players. You're going to be a little disappointed if RJ Barrett's not going to take that next step. But I like what they have from Obi Toppin so far and Emmanuel quickly. Hopefully, over the season, IQ gets that starting PG role, and we'll see what he could do if he could take that.
There's a lot of potential here and growth that you're seeing with the Knicks, so it's very promising. Now I see tomorrow night they're playing Golden State. They're going out west.
Yeah, they
So
are.
that'll be
Golden State. They've been actually been playing well on the backs of Steph Curry.
yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond to a team that's been, that team in the NBA over the course of the last 5-6 years. So that'll be intrigued to watch that tomorrow night and see how they perform. But yeah, the Knicks are they're heading in the right direction. There's no other plane, and there's nothing else you. Now I haven't been watching as much as you. I'm sure. I've just been mostly paying attention from the news, like the reports and their records. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add on the Knicks.
No, I mean, like I said, they just have to focus on the player development. They just have to put these players in a position to succeed, and as long as they get the progression going right, and there's no better coach than Tom Thibodeau and the surrounding coaching staff that they put around them with Kenny Payne and a few of those other guys that they brought in. So it's just lots to like, nothing to really complain about. You can't really complain about anything except for just if RJ Barrett is not having consistency, and that's just what's going to come down to it. So it's kind of you want to take each game, not each game. You kind of want to take it like 10 games at a time. So see where the Knicks were at, 10 games in or 20 games in, and so they're 15 games in now, so they're 7-8. So now you see what they do over these next 15 games, and then see what they do over the next 15 games, and that's a good way to dissect, their development of this season, and how they progressed. So it's also just a wait and see game to see, how the rest of the season plays out. But they're in a way different position than the Nets, even though the Nets are around the same record as the Knicks.
That's what I'm saying. And the Knicks are playing with zero expectations, so there's a lot of pressure on the Nets going forward.
Absolutely. And they actually, even though they balled out, they lost that game in double overtime to the Cavs and Nets.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my God. How was it? See, that's the problem when you have just three guys as superstars.
Yep.
There's some weaknesses around your game then with the rest of the bench.
Yeah. And that's probably one thing that the Lakers did improve on, was like solidifying like their depth around LeBron and AD, bringing in guys like Montrezl Harrell, Dennis Schroeder, the sixth man of the year and the runner-up sixth man of the year. So I still think they're in pretty good shape. It's going to be an interesting finals if it's Brooklyn and the Lakers.
Definitely. I don't know. It'd be really disappointing if one of those teams doesn't make it to the finals.
Yeah, I think it's the matchup the whole nation wants to see. But you
Yeah,
know
and
what?
there's still a
We'll
long
see.
season to go.
Yeah, long
Very
season
long
to
season.
go. I didn't think it happened. Who knows what Kyrie might pull next? If he even, who knows? Maybe he stops playing tomorrow. Who knows what happens?
Right? Anything's possible, that guy.
So, but yeah, lots of love from the Knicks side, and a lot of pressure on the Nets to get to the NBA Finals. But let's take a little break. We'll come back and we'll get into a little bit of hockey, and then we'll get into the playoff picture.
Bum, 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 bum.
Welcome back to Big Apple Banter. So last week, the NHL season started. It went underway, and so a week later, the Islanders and Rangers both each had 3 games played, and the Islanders and Rangers both started the season off at the MSG. They played each other on a set of back to backs, but not back to back days. But in the first game of the season, the Islanders came out on top. They came out firing early against the Rangers. They won that game 4-0. And in that game, the Islanders looked like they didn't miss a beat after they got eliminated from the Eastern Conference Finals. It was a great showing all around for them. Anders Lee had a couple goals. They had a couple power play goals on 5 chances, something that the Islanders absolutely struggle on and something they're going to have to continue to work on throughout the season. Because even though they had a good night, 2 for 5, it's definitely not going to last throughout the season. And then I know them; they have a tendency to not shoot the puck, and that's something they're gonna have to work on because they don't have that true sniper, that true goal scorer, like an Ovechkin or somebody like a Stamkos, even like McDavid. They don't have a top guy on that team to really take those kind of shots. So they have to be a little bit creative, move the puck a little bit quicker because they have a tendency to hold on to the puck a little bit too long before they make a pass on the power play. And I've seen that way too many times. But so far, all right. Then the next game against the Rangers returned the favor. They handed them a 5
Yeah.
nothing loss. Complete opposite of what happened in the first game. The Islanders were flat pretty much all game. A lot of turnovers, a little bit unlucky puck things with the ref getting in the way. And you know what? It's just one thing in sports where when a team scores early or a miscue happens or a turnover happens, it just sets the tone for the rest of the game. And it
Mm-hmm.
happens in a lot of sports. We've seen it, multiple times. And that's what happened there. Just the Islanders just couldn't get anything going. Actually, early in practice that day, their goalie, Varlamov, got injured. He took a shot around the face, neck area. So he was supposed to play that game. So they had to put in their rookie goalie that they signed from Russia that they drafted a few years ago. He's a top prospect of theirs, Ilya Sorokin. So coming into that game when he wasn't really expected to play, and with the team not playing well in front of him, it was just a combination of mishaps and unlucky puck play. So, something that the Islanders is going to have to look back at the tape, and I'm sure Barry Trotz is going to get all over them for that loss, and rightfully so, because they did not play well as at all in front of that goaltender. If I was the goalie, he made a couple saves should have been on him, but other than that, like a lot of turnovers and just not playing well in front of him. Then the Islanders bounced back. They won against their last game against the Boston Bruins. Not a lot of offense was generated. It was scoreless going into the third period and even to the last 5 minutes of the game. The Islanders got a pretty lucky goal that JG Padjo, who the Islanders traded for last season at the trade deadline. He came through with the goal. He batted out of the air to get the W. And when you get a win over a solid club like the Boston Bruins, it's huge. And even more in this season because with the 56 game schedule and you're playing the same opponents 8 times a year and only the top 4 teams in your division make it, every win is critical. So just like last season in the MLB, where essentially every game was worth like two. It was like worth double or more, or like 8 games. It was worth like like one game was kind of not like that. It was like, but it was worth double. It was worth double because over a long stretch, if you won on like a 5 game losing streak, it was like a 18 game losing streak or something, and that equivalent in baseball. So even more so here in hockey, they got that 1-0 win, and even more not going into overtime where Boston would have got a point, even more critical because every point is going to be, you know. Uh, very meaningful making that playoff push. Only the top 4 teams. It used to be like possibly it would be the top 3 teams and then the 2 best teams with the higher point percentage. So that's how that would work, but not this season. It's the top 4 teams. So good win for the Islanders. They're 2-1 to start the season. Their next game is actually going to be tomorrow against the Devils, who have been surprisingly playing well, but they're expected to be a bottom feeder for this season, especially in a tough division with the Islanders, Pittsburgh, the Flyers, Boston, the Capitals, even the Rangers. Um, but going into the Rangers, we just spoke about them a little bit with the Islanders, but they just lost to the Devils last night. So that's good. Yeah, I'm rooting for the Rangers to lose. As a Hunter fan, I don't want to see the Rangers win.
Of course not.
So the Rangers play Pittsburgh on Friday. That's going to be now that every game's within the division. I don't want any game to go into overtime. I don't want any other team to get any other point unless the Islanders are going to overtime. And either way, you want to come out with that W because the point, 2 points are essentially 4 points, and everything's going to be meaningful. But so far, I like the direction of the team for the Islanders. I like where the season's going. I think they're going to be competitive. I think they're going to make the playoffs. Hopefully, I saw actually Josh Bailey for the Islanders was going through COVID protocol. I don't know if he's going to be available for tomorrow's game. So that's going to be a roster spot opening up. And it's going to be a crazy situation, a crazy season because with COVID going on, players sitting in, getting in, having to sit out and go through the protocol and go through all this testing, it's going to give a lot of other players chances to see what they can do. So now that Josh Bailey could be out, looks like a prospect for the Islanders, Oliver Wahlstrom, could be getting a chance to play, and he was a top 10 pick for the Islanders a couple years ago. So a lot of promise there, and hopefully with that chance, if he does get that chance on Thursday, he could make something of it. He had a couple game stint last year with the Islanders. He didn't really show too much, but I like what the kid, a lot of the potential the kid has, and if he can play on the second line or even third line, I think he could put up some points. He's not going to put up like 60 points or anything for the season if he were to get continuing playing time, but I could see him putting up around 30 points or so and getting around like 15 to 20 goals. And if he could do that from like the second or third line, which he's definitely capable of, because that's all people have been raving about this kid since he was drafted, was about his shot. And there's a highlight of him from a 9-year-old. He did a crazy spinorama goal, and ever since then, it's crazy. I remember seeing that highlight a few years ago when he was like 9 or 10, and when he was draft eligible, I wanted the Islanders to grab him. They grabbed him, and they also drafted Noah Dobson a couple picks after him, and he's been playing pretty well for the Islanders. A solid defensive rookie. So lots to love in the Islanders, and when you have a head coach like Barry Trotz, I trust nobody more than him. Is a head coach with a respectable resume, and it's lots to love. Lots to love.
Welcome back to Big Apple Banter. This past weekend, we had a huge weekend in football. There was 4 key games. Some games featured some legends at the quarterback position. And other games preface, young and upcoming stars at the quarterback position. So it was a pretty exciting weekend in football. And, it got kicked off with the Rams and Packers from Lambeau Field. The Packers took care of the business against the Rams. Aaron Rodgers looked like Aaron Rodgers. He threw for 2 touchdowns and was almost 300 yards. They got the running game going with Aaron Jones, and the defense played complimentary football. So the Packers did their thing like we expected. I mean, we picked Green Bay, so now Green Bay moves on to the championship game. I mean, hopefully they'll perform better than they did a year ago against San Francisco. But we'll find out more about that this weekend.
I mean, I don't really think LA stood a chance. Jared Goff is not Aaron Rodgers. The Packers defense has been a lot better now and than Aaron Rodgers has had in his career because they've never really had a defense for him. So now that they have a pretty decent defense, uh, I think they're in a pretty prime position to get to the Super Bowl and win that Super Bowl. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers did his thing. He's cool as a cucumber. Uh, he makes other players around him better. Guys like Lazard and Valdez Scanting. They're guys that when you're a quarterback with great talents, it doesn't matter who you're throwing the ball to, you're gonna make the ball appear in their hands, and that's what he does. He makes those amazing throws.
Yeah, and Jared Goff didn't have a bad game necessarily, but I mean, you look at his box score; he only had 174 yards. They played too conservative because they're afraid of making that backbreaking mistake. Cam Akers had a decent game, but Aaron Rodgers did his thing, and they weren't a match. They just weren't a match for them.
Yeah, no, I know it's Sean McVay. He's a hell of a coach, but Matt LaFleur, he's a pretty damn good coach himself. And at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers versus Jared Goff, you're taking Aaron Rodgers.
Is that Matt LaFleur,
Regardless.
the brother of the new offensive coordinator of the Jets, Mike LaFleur?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully they're they're a lot alike for the Jets.
Yeah,
Sake.
lots to lot of hope for the Jets with the coaching staff. Lots of hope.
Yes, future's bright in Florham Park.
Oh yeah.
The second game of the weekend was between the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. Now we talked about how we like Buffalo, but we wouldn't be shocked if Baltimore pulled it off. I know we've been big critics of Lamar, and rightfully so, based on how he played this past weekend.
Yep.
He struggled to get anything downfield on Buffalo. We said how Buffalo's secondary was second to none this past season. And Lamar threw for a modest 160 yards and an INT. He really struggled. And you know what? I know towards the end of the game he left with possible concussion. And then so I forgot who his backup was, but he couldn't get anything going either. I mean, he's barely played. But
Yeah.
Josh Allen played a conservative game. He let the defense do his thing. He had some key runs, but Buffalo got it done, 17-13. It was a pretty boring game, but
Yeah. Yeah, definitely give it that. It was a boring game. It's definitely it could have been. There's two sides of this, and we got the boring game. It could have been a shootout. It wasn't a shootout. Lamar Jackson ultimately had to leave the game early because of a concussion, and he wasn't even able to run the ball like he was last week. And you and I were both saying that if Buffalo was going to have any chance to winning this, they're going to have to limit him on the run and close him down in the pocket to force him to throw. And he wasn't even able to throw the ball that well. He was only 14 of 24. So that's just roughly around 50%, a little over 50%. So that's not what you want to see from your quarterback. And only 160 yards. That's very modest. But yeah, Josh Allen, he didn't have a great game either. He only had 200, little over 200 yards, and his pass percentage wasn't that great either. He did account for a touchdown. Steph Diggs did ball out. He did his thing. And, that's probably, what it comes down to, too. Steph Diggs over Marquise Brown. You have the talent in the wide receiver position is definitely more advantage to the Bills there. They definitely have the advantage there. And the defense might be pretty even. The secondary of the Bills might be, I don't know. The defense is pretty well matched on both sides. And you saw that. It's a pretty low scoring game. Nobody probably saw that. I don't know if the over was if everybody was going to bet the over in that game. But
that fell big time.
yeah, everybody probably thought of a shootout. Last year's MVP, potential MVP, in Josh Allen, and we kind of got a dud of a game.
Yeah,
in a way. But the Bills defense, they were able to shut down Lamar and company, and they came out on top. And I think that's what most people expected, honestly.
yeah, and if Lamar is really going to take that next level in getting closer to the Super Bowl, I feel like the Ravens got to go out and get a true number one receiver. I mean, Hollywood Brown's a nice player, but they really don't have any big guys on the outside. I
Yeah,
mean,
they need a
signing
dynamic skill
De-
player.
Des Bryant, I mean, really, he hasn't played in years.
He's washed up.
Yeah, they need that true number one receiver. So that might be something looking forward this offseason for them to maybe get over the top next year.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, no,
yeah, no,
I agree. And then they just waived Mark Ingram too.
I guess they're really
cap salary,
they like
to save on salary.
yeah, maybe they just like Dobson.
Yeah, no, J.K. Dobbins is good. Can't solid back, and when you get him young on a cheap contract, he was a rookie. You run him into the ground
for real
because they're cheap.
They're dime a dozen in the league. So that rolls over into Sunday, and this game had the biggest potential of possibly being an upset. I mean, halfway through that game, between Kansas City and the Browns, you saw Patrick Mahomes go under. I was like, damn, the Browns might have an opportunity here to get to the championship game.
Yeah, dude, I couldn't believe that. And when I wasn't watching this whole game, and when I had gotten home and turned the game on, and I saw the score as close as it was, I was like, what the heck is going on here? And then I saw Mahomes leaves the game. I'm like, oh my God, no way! Like, is this happening? Luckily they came out on top. The defense was able to hold them. But wow, what a crazy moment that game could have been.
No, and one key play, which a lot of people were talking about earlier this week.
Andy
that play
Reid
right before half
on 4th and 1. Oh no,
the play before half where Baker hooked up with Higgins, the wideout for the Browns, and he went to dive for the pylon, ended up fumbling in the process.
Oh,
and the ball out of the back of the end zone. Now that rule, I know the rule's in place, but that rule needs to be changed. I mean, this happened to the Jets a few years ago with Austin Seferian-Jenkins against New England. I don't understand
what happens. So that's a touchback for the other team. It's the other team's ball if you fumble it to the end zone.
That's why I don't get it. Why are they rewarding the defending team? They didn't recover a fumble. If anything, you should penalize the offense because what do they do to deserve the ball, the defense? So, I mean, they talked about, Bill Belichick coaches to never, reach for the pylon because there's nothing you can gain from that, which might be something the Browns might want to look going forward. But they got to change that rule because if you look at the final score, 22-17, that one play, that touchdown, essentially is the difference in this game.
Wow.
So,
that's crazy to think about. I mean, I didn't know about that rule, actually. But yeah, I mean, if that rule, were to change, you want to see that change where like they would get the ball at the I'm surprised. I'm surprised they don't get this ball. Like usually that happens. Usually they get the ball at the spot of the fumble, right? Like if it were to fall out of bounds, but because it went into the end zone, it's the defensive
and rolled out
team.
the bounce in the end zone. Yeah. So
and then if the Browns were to recover it in the end zone, it has to be the player who fumbled it in order for it to count as a touchdown. And then what happens if a player who didn't fumble it recovers the ball? Like it's just like half the distance.
It would be from where the ball was fumbled.
Oh, where the ball was fumbled.
So probably like on the inch-yard line in front of the goal line.
Yeah.
But, I mean, potentially they can change it to something like, if that happens and no one recovers it or rolls out of bounds, you can potentially back the offensive team up to like the 20-yard line or something. I don't know if that's a possibility, but the fact that to just automatically give it to the defense doesn't seem fair. I mean, they didn't do anything to deserve to get the ball, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if the NFL will look to make another rule change? Who knows? I mean, it could happen. It could not happen.
But besides that, I mean, down late in that game, Patrick Mahomes is out and Cleveland was, playing solid defense. They were getting the ball back in their hands, but they couldn't get anything down the field on offense. They got too conservative and Baker couldn't get anything downfield. I mean, Baker had an okay game. He threw for a little over 200 yards and a 1 touchdown, 1 INT. Nothing special. And, Nick Chubb as well. He only rushed for 69 yards. So I know Kansas City's defense, they're kind of hit and miss, their defense. Yeah. Defensively, their defensive line isn't that great. I know they have Tyrann Mathieu at the back end, but that team relies on their offense.
They're coached well.
But still, if you're Cleveland, I mean, that just shows that Cleveland's not ready maybe to take that next step. I mean, they were a nice story this year. They finally got in the postseason in almost 20 years, but I still think that defense needs some work. And offensively, you know, they got to stretch the
What,
field a little bit more.
when did Mahomes come out of that game? Like the third quarter?
Yeah, yeah, about the end of the third quarter because they had a full quarter without him.
So that's crazy. So like if Mahomes stays in that game, you don't think this game finishes as close as it does, right? You think he throws like another touchdown or two, or maybe like a touchdown and they drive down to get like another 3 points or something?
Yeah, I think they score at least another field goal. So maybe it stretches it to, you know, maybe a little more than a one possession lead, but I don't know.
They
I
didn't
mean,
cover.
no, they did not. I mean, that's why I like the Browns last week. I said Browns plus 10. They did cover.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe Mahomes stays in that game. He has a full quarter left in him. I think they could probably score like another touchdown. Maybe he also drives down, gets another 3 points, or any combination, or one or the other. Maybe they
Did you
do
see the
cover or not.
injury?
No, I didn't see the hit.
The
He took.
highlights?
No.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he actually got hit in the head. It seemed more like he got choked out essentially, and his head kind of twisted a little bit. So I don't know if it didn't seem at the time as if it was a concussion, and more like maybe a possible neck injury, which is even more dangerous. But I think they diagnosed him with a concussion, but he's been in full participation as of today in practice. So it looks like he's going to be scheduled to play this week. So, I mean, they need him to play because they don't stand a chance against Buffalo if he does not play.
Oh, absolutely not. No,
Chad Henne at quarterback, they're not going to beat
no chance
Buffalo.
at all. But if the KC's defense does come up big and Josh Allen has a dud of a game and
Which is
could
always
be
possible.
could be a low scoring affair like the Ravens Bills game. But if Mahomes comes out and starts that game, what a game it's going to be to see Allen versus Mahomes. Right now, KC's favored by 3 points. And if Mahomes is in that game, I'm taking those 3 points. I'll lay the 3 points, and I'll take KC by 3.
Oh, we're doing the picks now? Yeah, just previewing this game real quick. I mean, I'm going to get my pick after we recap the final game of divisional weekend, which was between the Bucs and the Saints. Now, this game had two future Hall of Fame quarterbacks, two guys in their 40s, in the Dome in New Orleans. It was all scheduled for Drew Brees to keep his story going because just before the game, it came out that was his final game at the Metrodome. And he was going across Tom Brady, who's with the new team, as we know. He had all that success in New England, but he had a pretty good year in Tampa. And then from
Better
the
year than Bill
get-go,
did.
what's that? Yeah, right.
Better.
So that's still a discussion. I mean, who was the brains behind that operation? But there's still more to be determined by that. But yeah, looking at the game, I mean, right from the get-go, you looked at Drew Brees. He was struggling. His throws, he was throwing behind receivers. Guys weren't even looking half the time. It just didn't seem
Poor
like he was
Drew,
his
man.
day.
It's sad they had to go out like that.
No, and the game was tight. The game was tight for the first half at least. And then towards the end of the third quarter, there was that key play where Jared Cook got stripped and the Buccaneers recovered. And from that standpoint, it kind of all went wrong for New Orleans. Drew Brees went on to throw another 2 picks. I mean, he finished the game with 3 interceptions. That was one of his worst games in this postseason in his career. Tom Brady was kind of, playing all right to that point. He was kind of just being conservative, letting his defense play. And it was the right decision because
kind of
the
a typical
defense,
Tom Brady game plan if you think about it.
yeah, let the defense play their game and wait till the end to make your move, which is exactly what he did. I mean, he led his team down the field towards the end. He had a quarterback sneak in for a touchdown. So Tom Brady gets a dub in Tampa, and he has 2 wins now, and he's going to his 14th conference championship game.
Yeah, I mean, you and I think we both picked the Bucs to win this game outright, and we took them on the spread. And I wasn't going to go against Tom Brady, even though earlier in my postseason bracket I had the Saints to beat them. But Going into this game, I wasn't going to go against Tom Brady. He's not playing like a 43-year-old quarterback. He's older than Drew, and Drew has nothing left in the tank, and Tom Brady's still going. Drew can't throw deep. His accuracy isn't, as it once was. They actually had Jameis Winston come in and throw a deep ball. They used that play that Chicago had in the playoffs, and they dropped
Yeah,
in the end zone, but it
yeah,
worked out
this
for
time it
them.
worked.
So, but yeah, they used Jameis because he's got that cannon of an arm, and they unleashed it. They grabbed, they got that TD. But yeah, Drew, sad that he had to go out like that. But it's another opponent,
Yeah, you
slayed
you
by Tom Brady.
you got to figure that maybe if it wasn't Drew's last game, that they probably would have pulled him because he was really struggling. They probably would have put Winston in, don't you think? If it wasn't
Yeah,
his
I'm
last game.
surprised. It's shocking. Like, maybe. Yeah, that's probably. Yeah, I guess it's his last game. You do it because you probably don't do that to him in his last game, right? You don't take him out, or just Drew like, you know, come up, and be like, hey guys, put Jameis in, let's try and win this game. You don't. Do you think like that's going through his head at all, or he wants to just finish it and no matter how bad, or he just wants to finish that game?
I think it runs through his head because that's being unselfish and thinking more about the team above yourself. But also the competitive nature of any professional athlete. He's also thinking, you know what, I can do this. I can turn this back around. And to his detriment, that ended up costing his team the game. And you know what, New Orleans over the last 4 or 5 years, every playoff game it seems like they come up short. One
Yeah.
thing or another, they just fall short every time. So
And it was a weird season for them. Michael Thomas was like, on and off throughout the season.
he had a
So
big fat 0 catches in that game, Michael
yeah,
Thomas.
who knows what his future is going to be like in New Orleans, and because if they don't have a quarterback, you know, who's he going to be catching the ball from? If it's going to be Jameis or another direction that they go in the future, but Tom Brady's moving on. That's the bigger story.
Yeah, if you like it or not, he's moving on. So Tom Brady, this first game of this next weekend, it's going to be, the two
Conference
old
championship.
quarterbacks, Brady and Rodgers, going head to head against each other in Lambeau. First time Rodgers is hosting a championship game in home field. So this game, I mean, just looking at it first glance, you got to think this is the Packers' time and Rodgers' time. I mean, he has a touchdown
You
to
got to think
interception ratio of 50-5. This is one of his best statistical seasons of his
this
career.
is his. I think this is his best statistical season.
Yeah, and he's 37 years old, I think,
Yeah,
37,
36.
38,
36.
36. So, yeah, if not now, then when? So you would hope he gets it done, but something about Tom Brady, time and time again, he just when you count him out, he makes you pay.
Yeah, man. I don't. It's just like you can't get rid of this guy. It just keeps coming back to haunt you. And for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who's still looking to get his second ring, and he has to compete against a guy who's who's got 7 years on him and four more rings, like it's got to be tough. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, this I want this to be my time. Enough time. Like you had your time. Like yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to take care of business.
He better. He really better. Or, this is just going to be once again, him falling up short and Tom Brady's just better than him at that point.
I mean, Tom Brady is going to have to be dealing with that cold. I know he's obviously used to the cold from playing in Foxborough, but if you're in your home stadium, you're with the season that he just had, with everything going on, with Jordan Love being drafted, in last year's draft, and that just really got him lit. Got him fired up. Put up an MVP season. Most likely, he will be voted the MVP of the league. Uh, there's not enough to say about this guy. I think when it comes down to it, you know, your Aaron Rodgers has I feel a lot more talent than Tom Brady when it comes to throwing the ball. And I feel like they read the defense about the same, but I obviously it's going to come down to defense because it's not like Rodgers is playing Brady. It's not like that. They're playing each other's defense. So I like Rodgers. I think this is his time. I think he's going to make it to the big game.
I think you're right. I want to believe you're right. But I guess we'll have to let it see play out on the field. But this is Aaron Rodgers' chance. This is might be his last opportunity to really go all the way. So he better not spoil it.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be it's crazy because a lot of the nation isn't really big fans of Tom Brady, and now we're looking at you and I were just having this conversation in basketball. With LeBron, he's at the outs of his careers, and it's towards the end, and looking for those vital championships to to get to Jordan. And Tom Brady's already set the standard. He's just adding to his legacy. So, and obviously, it's going to be more meaningful to him to beat Rodgers, slay this dragon, get on to the next game, and then if he could get to that next game without Bill, and then even win that game possibly without Bill,
Yeah.
this is just the storyline he wanted. It's probably the storyline he drew up in his head when he made the decision to go to Tampa Bay. So, it's going to be one of the greatest games, hopefully, one of the greatest matchups.
Yeah,
A lot of hype surrounding the game. It's Tom Brady, Old Man River, and then Aaron Rodgers. So,
I can't believe it's the early game on Sunday. I would think it'd be the late game. For some reason, that's the early game ahead of the Bills and Chiefs.
yeah, it's an interesting one. But either way, you couldn't go wrong, afternoon or night game with either game. And it's just because it's Mahomes. Yeah, but
maybe it's the cold too. Lambeau is going to be even colder at night. Maybe that plays a flag.
Maybe it comes into play.
But yeah, this is Aaron Rodgers got to get it done this weekend, and we'll see if he can. And then the final game of Championship Sunday will be between Buffalo. What?
Yeah, no, I was going to say the Packers are -3 in that game.
Oh yeah.
Take the Pack -3.
Yeah, I'll go with Green Bay, but I'm not too confident in that. I'll take Green Bay in the 3 points. So, and yeah, so that leads us into the final game of the weekend: the Bills and the Chiefs. Now, the Bills, I can't believe they're in the championship game. I've been doubting them all year long, but they've been proving me wrong. I mean, they really are an all-around good team, and they go into Kansas City as a underdog, but not a big underdog nonetheless. Now, this game still is dependent on what Mahomes plays, but judging by the line of Kansas City -3, that would lead me to believe that Mahomes is playing on Sunday.
Yeah, that'll probably give you a decent indication that he's playing. But when it comes down to it, with these two talented quarterback, I'm not going against Mahomes. There's just too much talent surrounding the Kansas City offense when it comes to all these weapons that he has. Sadly, Josh Allen just has Steph Diggs, and that's not going to be enough to outduel Tyreek and Kelsey and all these other guys that they have. So Mahomes is getting to his second Super Bowl. I don't know if he's going to win his second Super Bowl, but he's definitely going to get there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Buffalo is going to fall short this weekend. Josh Allen's going to make some boneheaded mistake. I don't know how many there will be, but even if he makes none, Kansas City's too talented with Mahomes at the helm, and Andy Reid is experienced now with that Super Bowl under his belt. So yeah, I'm gonna take Kansas City laying the 3, and they're gonna go to Super Bowl.
Yeah, man, and it's gonna be crazy to see what because in these games, when it's gonna come down to the Bucks and Packers and the Bills and Chiefs, it's gonna come down to as and last week with the Bills and with the Browns and Chiefs. There's gonna be a play that gets called back, or a shoulda play, or a coulda woulda been play, and it's gonna be interesting to see what that play might be in these games. Because there's also that talked about play where Andy Reid went on him with 4th and 1 last week towards the end of the game, and it was a gutsy call. They didn't run it. They had a pass play with the backup quarterback. Like anything could have gone wrong if they would have dropped that pass, and Baker and the Browns would have had like a little over a minute to rush down the field and possibly eliminate Kansas City. So definitely a lot of criticism would have been thrown at Andy Reid if that play didn't go their way. Even there was still some criticism because he still called that play and the play had to be executed properly. So who knows what kind of play we'll see this Sunday from either game, which could be detrimental to the outcome.
Absolutely, and that just has to fall on Andy Reid finally have a Super Bowl. I don't think if this was last year at this time, I don't think Andy Reid makes that same call. I think he punts it away. But that's the perks of getting it done. People trust you more. So,
And so we both have KC and Packers -3, and as I had in my bracket, I had Packers Chiefs Super Bowl, and if it does come down to that, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to get his second Super Bowl. But we'll talk about that
yeah,
next
we'll talk
week on
about
our
it the next
show.
time.
And all right, man. Have a good night. It was a great chat, and I'll see you next week.
All right, take it easy.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to Big Apple Banter. Catch you later.